Hey, mighty peeps, happy Friday. Oh, it's not Friday, is it? It's Thursday. Why is Friday on my mind? Because I'm almost at the end of my own personal work week after stretching myself all over the place in September. Deep breath. I think I'm actually taking tomorrow off. Probably also because we have some mighty, shiny, bold, stretchy sorts of out of the house appointments tomorrow. So, perfect time to chill and relax. But before we chill and relax, I want to recap both the last week of the Facebook Lives and my past month, and because I told all of you, my mighty pals, about the content marketing challenge that I was putting myself through through the month of September. So, hello, welcome. I am so glad you're here with me live. Hey, Fran, or if you're watching on the replays, I hope all of you have a chance to do that. I've had guests with me this week, and I talked in my email and I talked in my communities on Facebook about content. I've talked about refreshing and repurposing and reusing because, folks, the secret to mightier marketing and to finding our mojo is to work smarter, not harder. And it doesn't mean that we always have to push ourselves quite as hard as I did this past month. But part of why I did that was so that I have content that I can reuse, content that is fresh, content that is evergreen. And I realized that maybe I need to stop a second. What do I mean by evergreen content? The term comes from gardening analogies. If you've ever gardened a little bit, if you've even ever just taken advantage of the bounties that are in somebody else's garden, you know there are different types of plants. And it's fall here in the northern hemisphere. My maples are turning red right now. And you know that there are evergreen trees, pines, conifers. The leaves are always green, not the kind that drop and fall off, which means that they're always out there. They always look pretty good. And every yard, every gardener tells you need to have some things that are always going to be green so that nobody drives by your house and you look like a bunch of dead twigs in the middle of winter if you don't have some evergreens. You know, I've got my hollies. I've even got some other things. They're evergreen. And then we have our perennials. My lilacs bloom and they come back every year, and I don't have to do a lot of extra work for that. In fact, I don't have to do any work at all. My knockout roses come back every year. So we want content that's like that. We might have content that is evergreen, that it's going to be good and useful for our audiences, whether they find us next week, next month, 9 months from now, maybe even years from now. And then there's going to be content that maybe is good, to have a little touch up every year. I know folks who work in education and parenting, and they can bring back their back to school stuff every fall. They can talk about holidays when those holidays roll around. My library clients, my library partners talk about National Library Card Sign Up Month in September. They talk about Banned Book Week. This is Banned Book Week for anybody who's wondering. We just finished that up. There are things that are perennial. And then we have annuals, those hot flashes of colors, petunias and begonias and impatiens and pansies and woo, all the bright colors. They die. They die. They die every season. And we know that. And that's okay. Folks, that's your social media. That's a lot of your social media posts and your tweets and your Instagrams and your stories and everything that goes boop, and some of it's dead in 24 hours. That's okay, fine. Snapchat. We also might have posts. We might curate something. We might share a hot news tip. We might talk about trends. And that's okay. We need that kind of content too. But content refreshing is like when a gardener goes around and deads heads and trims and prunes. And I don't know why I hadn't thought about using that in analogy in a video before, because that's exactly what this content refresh has been. This is us going in to our websites, looking at our blogs, possibly even looking at our pages and going, what are the pine trees? What are the spruces? What's the stuff that's going to be sturdy and long lasting and it's still going to look good if we just trim some branches up? So it's not a little scraggly. I mean, I have a holly right outside my office window. I'm looking at it right now, and I think I planted it more than 10 years ago. And it's evergreen, so that's brilliant. But it got overgrown. It got completely overgrown and scraggly. And I admit, I paid to have somebody do my yard and cut my yard. That was like the first thing I outsourced in my life, like 15 years ago. And he looked at it and was like, "You have got to do something about the let's shape that up." And shaping it and making it back into a round ball and getting rid of all the straggly bits has just made it more evergreen. It's healthier. It looks better. The same with trimming up my perennials. They needed some help. They were getting straggly. I need to have my cousin come over and she needs to like split my daylilies and split the hostas and all of those things so they can grow and be seen and be beautiful. Our content needs that. We need to take the time in our lives. And here's the better thing, it's better if we do this a little more often rather than waiting and only doing it once a year. My garden would look better. That's why my guy does a spring cleanup and a fall cleanup for me. Um, that we clean and we trim those things up. We take a look and we see, does it still make sense for my message from my audience to be talking about that post? I looked at my website and I looked at my stats and I'll pull up my spreadsheet in a second. That I think I did it was a marketing trends recap. It was marketing trends from 2013. Not quite so perennial and kind of an annual, and honestly, that is dead. I should I need to take that off the site. I took other things off, took them off, moved them to draft. I will save it somewhere for posterity on my computer because data is cheap, but it needs to be off of my blog. It's not helping anybody. And I don't know if I have the energy to want to do a marketing trends recap every year. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll curate that. That may be something great to let somebody who has a paid staff go do that. And I'm betting there is somebody in your niche who does the top trends for the next year, and all of those posts come out in December of 2020, January 2021. Great. Go curate that and make it social media, put it in an email, maybe make it a blog post, but just know that, you know what, a year from now, you're probably going to take it down. It's not helping if it's not getting a lot of traffic. And then there's the annuals. Like I said, there's those hot flashes. I'm like, oh, that was a great idea. I wrote about it. And I looked, it's like one of the very first posts I wrote looked more like a tweet. It was 2 paragraphs. I'm like, okay, that's great. But this is not serving anybody any good right now. So doing that and talking with my guest this week, talking with Karen, talking with Pam, talking with Erica, I think we all agreed that this is the type of project as business owners who put out content to attract our audience for visibility and reach. Why we're producing content. We're educating, we're informing, we're inspiring actions. That's marketing. That all of us in our niches need to do some gardening on our content. We need to do some refreshing, and it's better if we do it a couple of times a year rather than just all at once and having to do, a lot more weeding, hoeing, trimming, snipping, pruning, cleaning, dusting up, because the party's coming. Those were 2 really great analogies that we had this week. The gardening analogy and the, oh my God, everybody's coming to my house for a party, I better clean up. So what did I do? So I realized I crumpled my Post-it note and I threw it in the trash. But I thought maybe I'd have my own interview notes for myself, and I'll ask me the same questions about why did I choose to do a content refresh during September. I think because I intuitively knew that I had things on my site that didn't fit anymore, that weren't the right focus. And that's okay, because sometimes it takes us a while to find our focus in business. Yeah, the party cleaning analogy is really great too. In fact, I like that. That, I have other things. I'm trying to get to more evergreen. My word for the year was going to be consistent and coherent and intentional, which means more of a focus on evergreen content, things that are connected and not just throwing things up at the wall, be that a workshop, a webinar, an email, but to have those pieces linked together, and so that I can promote them again in the spring and again next summer, and not have that be, oh, but I already did that, so I have to do something new. No, we can refocus and we can reuse and we can repurpose. The entire reason I taught a repurposing workshop on how to do things really easy, like repurposing PowerPoints. So for an example, I took a webinar, and I'm going to teach now as a 2-day workshop, and there's going to be more coaching and hands-on. And it used to be about, look, these are like the 10 top tools. that I think you need to have in your business. I was about tools and about tech, and I still am. But you know what? Tools and tech change. Hello, Facebook, changing all the time. Just got an email just now about a new tool from Ecamm. Just showed you a new feature. If you're not on my email list, you want to be on my email list because I showed you a brilliant new feature with inside of Canva. Oh my gosh, game changer. Everything changes. And it was getting tiring, even for me, to keep up with those changes. And I didn't want to keep spending money on tools that were shiny and bright and um, attracting my eye, but that what was I really going to use them? Was that really the right fit? Am I buying it just because it's on sale? And I had developed a set of questions, which I realized actually fit an acronym. Great, GREAT. And that this was a system and process I was using, the questions I was asking myself when I looked at tech and tools to possibly be adding to run my business online. And thinking, you know what, instead of teaching you, here's this week's, this month's, this year's top 10 tools that I love, I'm going to teach you how to make decisions about your tech. I'm going to teach you my great acronym and system and how we can go through and make the right choices that fit us right now and how that's evolved over time. And like the analogy about gardening and the parties, well, I'm like, I'm going to be having more people coming over to my house for this workshop. And I'm putting this workshop out there, and I'm going to put this workshop out there multiple times. It's going to become like maybe a quarterly thing. I want more offers to be evergreen, which means I need to go up and make my website be more evergreen. And there's still work to be done. I still have more work to be done. But that's why I chose refreshing, was to get this last push toward the end of this year to be that intentional, consistent, coherent with my content so that people find me, they look at it and they go, I know what you're about. Great. Teach me that. So the question is, what did I do first? Well, this is where I'm going to share my screen because it was about analytics. And I didn't dive as deep into analytics as Erica did. You got to go check out the interview that we had with Erica, because the next thing that's on my list in October and November is looking at Search Console and search terms as I go create more content. So I'm going to hit this, and I've got a bunch of windows open right now. So good, that's exactly the one that I want. And no, we're going to, there we go. You don't need to see my face at the second. This is my content refresh tracking spreadsheet. If you were in one of my peeps, if you're one of my mighty pals and you're in the Mighty Marketing Mojo Facebook group, possibly right now, see this, it's in there, it's in the units section under content refresh. You copy it to your own account. And if you saw this earlier, you'll notice, there were more of these yellow. The yellow was what I highlighted to say this was the stuff that I had intentions of working on. A lot of stuff's moved to green because it means I did the refreshes there. It meant that, I listed views, I looked at the data, I knew, which things had gotten views in the last year. Let's focus there first. Let's focus on some of the older stuff that might be evergreen still, but has the wrong images or has broken links. And there's refresh dates. So, for example, it should have gone out last night. I republished a blog post on my website about using mind mapping software for content creation. That was this one right here. This post was originally written in March of 2015. It had evergreen topics and content. It ranked highly. It came up on the first page of Google search if you searched like mind mapping for content, mind mapping content creation or mind mapping content marketing. I don't remember which one. So I'm like, I'm keeping this, but it needed to have all of the broken links in it fixed because it was old. It needed a new and branded image. It still doesn't have the right opt-in, but we'll work on that. I put over here what I removed, some of the notes on what needed to be fixed. I'm happy that's back out there and has been republished, and now, it's new. One on branding, it's got new links fixed, it's got a new featured image, it's linking to one of my favorite graphic designers. I've got this other post, that one, again, freshened, new. It removed a bad course that it was still pointing to in a coaching program that didn't exist. And you can see all of these green boxes down here are all the ones that got new images, that got everything rebranded, even some of the ones that has not a lot of traffic lately. I was leaving them up, so they had to have the right branded image. That was where I started with creating the spreadsheet. I put in the link, the data about which posts had a lot of traffic, which ones were potentially evergreen, and which ones just needed to go away. So now I had to sort of out my evergreen content, my perennial content, and the stuff that was just, this is too old, and that plant is dead, and just yank it right out of the garden. The blue stuff right now. So these are some posts that I moved to draft, and let's face it, I ran out of time in the month, and I did decide I was going to sleep. I've got a bunch of posts about video, and I've been going back and forth, and the discussion with my guest this week was kind of helping me. I'm like, am I going to combine some of these into one pillar post about video marketing, or am I going to make it a blog series? And absolutely, if you're watching, you can watch this on the replay. It is going to be saved. You can absolutely catch up, no problems. Come back, check, watch again, leave some more comments. What's one of the great things about the Facebook Lives is once I do them live, yeah, it's content that gets to be repurposed, reused, and will live on in other formats. It's eventually also going to wind up on YouTube. I need to trim some stuff, but it's going to be on YouTube, which is funny. That's what I'm pointing at. I'm looking right now. It's like the 10 reasons to use YouTube, 8 easy video ideas, and I have more ideas, and there's more tools that I can point to since when I wrote these posts in July of 2017. And it's funny, I look at the dates, and clearly I wrote them as a series back then. I released them like just a few days apart. So that's one of the things that I still have to think through as to my intention. What's my intention? What is this going to lead to next in my business? How is this going to help me support? Am I teaching a video class? I don't know. I got an email from somebody just yesterday asking me about that. I'm like, well, I've taught video creation classes to my nonprofit audience for years, and I keep saying I'm going to go do it over here at Mighty Marketing Mojo. That maybe I put out a poll to my email list. Maybe I put out a poll in Facebook. Maybe that is something I'm going to create this winter, is about video. So maybe that's the next thing I focus on in my content refresh for the rest of this year, is how to make best use of the evergreen content that's in like those five posts all about video, and especially the fact that some of them have broken links and still need better images. So that's a great question. Fran is a great question, and I'm going to show it on the screen here. Did I type in all my posts on, or were I able to import it somehow? I copied and pasted and typed. However, that's one reason why I want to have maybe a separate master class with Erica Grant, because Erica is a techie and a geek like me, and she's using Airtable, and she used the combination of Zapier and Airtable. Zapier pulled the information on her posts out of WordPress and stuck it into an Airtable spreadsheet for her, and is keeping it updated with that information. I have a feeling I could do the same thing with Zapier and this Google Sheet. I just haven't played around with it because, as techie as I am, Zapier is one of those things that confounds me at times. So maybe that's going to be a project that I'll work on next, is learning how to do that, because it would be a lot simpler if I could keep this up to date, and I didn't have to copy it. Because there's another spreadsheet that I use that I also put the Google Sheet. It's a blog post tracker, which is specifically for tracking your analytics. And I do believe there is a way you can hook it up to your Google Analytics account and your Google spreadsheet and have it dump the data into the spreadsheet, so that it's a little bit easier to make sense of that if you've got your Google Analytics account going. But this was specifically posts that I pulled out that I'm going to be refreshing, that I'm taking a look at, that I'm keeping my eye on. And you could see that it's got, and I talk a little bit, I did a video about this as well. That's also in the Mighty Marketing group. But I wanted you to see that stuff changed. I got done the things that I said I was going to get done. And the other one, and let me come back, is to let everybody know thanks to the amazing help from Karen Crompton at KarenCrompton.com. Karen's a former journalist and she's an editor, and she helped me get the monster blog post from 6,000 words and some editing on my own down to 3,500. And yes, that the blog post is going to live in infamy. And I'm going to actually, if you're interested in knowing what blog post was that, I basically journaled my way through. I changed email marketing services at the beginning of 2019. And after having researched the, as Karen said, I researched the snot out of things. That's what I do. I have a master's degree in library and information science. I researched it. And looking at all the different email software, I'd already done MailChimp. I'd been with Aweber for more than 5 years and I hadn't left because it was a pain in the ass to leave. But it wasn't working for me. And I knew I needed to change. And basically I live stream, out into a blog post everything that I learned in the process of switching, which might have been cathartic for me as I wrote it, but did not make for good content later on. And I think I always wondered why that post didn't get better traffic. Well, because it was unreadable, folks. As many great pictures and headers and stuff I put in it, as Fran has told me, it's an ebook. Nobody's going to sit and read a 6,000 word blog post, folks. So everybody can now go check down to 3,500 word. It's got better flow, better spacing. There's still some parts there at the end where I'm like, okay, I still need some help toward the end and wrapping and tying things up, because the lesson learned and all of that, it was that ActiveCampaign was awesome, and that whatever snags that I hit when I first migrated, honestly, things smoothed out, very much well. And the snags came blunders on my part, not an ActiveCampaign problem. It was a me problem. I skipped steps like reading the instructions, which was not my normal MO at all. So one of the things that I think surprised me was looking at that data. Well, one of the things that surprised me was realizing that I'd written a 6,000 word blog post. That was surprising. Was some of the posts that got the traffic that they did, some of the ones that like the third, fourth most viewed blog post on my website was more than 5 years old. The one about mind mapping, and that some of the other posts that I thought would have been higher haven't. Why haven't they been? Because I haven't shared them and promoted them. You can't just put it out and let it, one and done. This is not Field of Dreams, people. If you build it, they will not come. You can build it, but you got to invite people. You got to share it. So that's the next steps for me, is promoting those things that have been trimmed, shaped, that look better, that I feel better about, and all of the other posts that I may have written in the past year. So those are some of the things that are next. It's an ongoing project. It's an ongoing trimming, weeding, cleaning, dusting, reusing. So, for example, I'm going to reuse these Facebook Lives. They're going to go into YouTube. They're going to probably want them in a blog post. I have software now that lets me transcribe videos via AI. So I'll get the transcriptions and maybe use that as part of the basis for a blog post. Just have to figure out when that's going to happen. Being more intentional and connected in the content that I create, making sure that I follow my own steps and advice in terms of promoting the content. So that's one of the things that, if you never thought about this before, to take the time over the course of a week, maybe a month, depends on your time and how large your website is, but starting with the data, starting with what do you have, sorting them out, which posts truly could be evergreen, which posts might be evergreen if you remove the dates, if you remove references to events that have already happened, training that has already happened. If a course has become evergreen, you can still link to it, promote it, sell it, but you don't want to talk about the fact that, hey, I'm getting ready to do blank. I'm like, no, you've already done it by now. It's like, go check out this. So, and then keeping an eye to the content that you have that's perennial and may need to be eventually weeded and removed in, a year or so. Or um, I used to do on my other website things about back to school, and I've gotten emails asking for link requests and are you going to be updating that this year? And the answer was no, no, I wasn't. I could, and maybe I should, or maybe I will in the future, but that wasn't my focus this year. But clearly, it's a perennial topic, and it could be something that I prune. So thinking about what are perennial topics, what are seasonal topics in your niche, in your industry, amongst your ideal clients, because that's something that you can build around, schedule around, plan a year around, and know when you're going to refresh them, when you're going to do the work for them. You're repurposing, you're reusing, you're being smarter in your marketing, which makes for mightier marketing and helps you to stay in the flow, to find your mojo. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about some of the things coming up. Reminder that I am going to be part of the Business Profit Equation Summit with Pam Hamilton and her other 9 speaking guests. That's next Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in October, first week in October. And I'm excited about that. Look for emails and posts from me about that. Meanwhile, come chat over in the Mighty Marketing Mojo group about where you see your content going. What is it that you feel that you've done, and perhaps in the last month, that you think you could reuse? Do you have something evergreen that you've created, or have you discovered an evergreen somewhere on your website and that you'd like to show it off more? That'll be something that we can talk about in the next week or so in the Mighty Marketing Mojo Facebook group. Meanwhile, I thank you for supporting me during the Content Refresh Challenge. And as I was very transparent about what I was doing and where I was stumbling and procrastinating, and for all of the guests who came on with Facebook with me this week to talk about how they approach the same challenge in their businesses, and that hopefully you learned something from each of the guests as well. And we'll get back to doing Mighty Marketing Mojo trainings and Facebook Lives again in the future, hopefully back on Thursdays with Thursday tips. Thank you all, my mighty pals. Go have an excellent and mighty weekend, and much success to you in your business.